everyone, welcome back to this episode of Rise with me, Henna Riaz. The conversation I had with Kane Mousah literally kept me on the edge of my seat. It was such an authentic, powerful conversation, very honest. Kane describes his rise as an MMA fighter coming from very difficult circumstances, how he ended up from there to being in jail, and how he's navigated through arguably one of the most difficult and challenging circumstances in his life to literally turn his life around and come out on top. This conversation was just so powerful, so authentic, just so honest that we couldn't cut it down into one episode. So we've made it into two. It's so brilliant, and I hope that you guys love it as much as I enjoyed recording it. Kane Mousah was on track to become the next biggest thing in MMA fighting. That was until he found himself convicted of firearms offences and sentenced to nearly a decade in jail. Spending 4.5 years in prison at the age of 22, Kane arguably left jail a completely changed man. Since then, he's built up a hugely successful clothing business and has an aura that positively affects everyone around him. How do you go from growing up with role models that are involved in criminal activity and ending up in jail to completely turning your life around and becoming such a positive role model? I'm so excited to have Kane on this episode of Rise today. He's a local Manchester boy, done good, and I'm so excited to share his story with you guys. I mean, meeting you it's been amazing for me because obviously we're both ethnic minorities. Like, I've not, had the experiences that you've had growing up, but I'm always so fascinated by anyone that's gone through so much adversity, really has had the odds stacked against them. And yet, in spite of all that, and you've been in some really challenging positions in your life, has completely turned their life around. And I think, people need to hear stories like yours. So I want to start from the beginning. You grew up in what side?
Originally, Rusholme.
Rusholme, okay.
Yeah. I'd just like to say thank you for the introduction as well, because sometimes it's good to hear. Sometimes you forget about everything that you've done and your story yourself because you're so focused on the end goal. So thank you for that. But yeah, I grew up in Rusholme.
Yeah. Tell me about what it was like growing up for you.
For me, it was amazing. I grew up with a loving mother. Me and my little sister grew up in an area which was, had a great community in Rusholme. There was a lot of good families around that area, and don't get me wrong, it was a tough area to be in, but at the same time the community was tight. So, I had a great upbringing. Yeah.
So did you end up getting involved with a bad crowd, or was it just that was kind of what was going on around you? Because you're a kid, right? So did you get involved in criminal activity at a young age, or what was it?
Well, for me, it's kind of like when you grow up on council estates and you grow up in the type of areas that we live in, seeing crime, whether it's shoplifting, down as shoplifting, whether it's burglary or minor theft or criminal damage, these things are something that you grow up and see all the time. So they don't feel like they're anything different. They feel like the norm. But for me, I just grew up being a normal kid with a good mum who was stern with me.
Yeah.
My mum was stern with me from being in school. She was stern with me. She wouldn't let me have any days off. I couldn't get any days off in school. My mum would say to me, "Listen, if the only way you're staying off school, is if you're dead or you need to go to the hospital." So, I always had a strong backbone in my mum. And I always had a retreat from the streets. Do you get what I mean? I felt like even though whatever was going on in the streets, whether I was getting into fights, when I was young, from the ages of 5, 6 onwards, I was just a normal kid getting involved in petty little street fights, having fights with your friends. We might do a little bit of criminal damage. We might run to the big houses because there was some big posh houses near where we lived, and we used to throw stones at the back window, and the guys would come out and chase us. And just kids, stuff like throwing stones at cars when they're coming past. Nothing too heavy.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I think one of the big reasons I didn't go too far at that age was because the licks that my mum was giving me when I was getting caught for it, the beatings that she used to give me was a heavy deterrent. And Yeah, so I had a great upbringing. I ended up getting involved in gangs and getting involved in like the gang culture when I was kind of around about 15. That was when I moved to Fallowfield.
Right.
And it was, I was then immersed into a different crowd completely. I was immersed into, people who had family members in high hierarchy and like big gangs, the
Big
most
names,
big
influential.
notoriety,
Yeah.
biggest notoriety gangs in Manchester and
Yeah.
at that time in the UK. So, it was a bit of a culture shock for me at the same time, even though I've been around. Look, my aunties were used to take drugs when I was younger. I've seen all types of crazy stuff growing up. I've seen my
Yeah.
aunties, my mum would take my auntie in, my auntie Carol, when she was like taking heroin and stuff, my mum would bring her off the streets so that she weren't doing it on the streets. And I've seen that within my own home. And,
Yeah.
my mum tried to protect me from stuff like that. And
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, that's all they had at the time, and they had each other. My mum had to be there for her sister, and I used to know that she'd be taking whatever she was taking, but that was my mum protecting her. So I have seen stuff. I've seen, friends' dads fighting. I've seen my friend's dad, Scott, used to be a governor for Man City's ground, and he used to be a fight. They used to fight every weekend, and I'd see him coming on with his face half open with bottles, cutting his face, and we'd be stood watching him fight. So, we did see a lot of stuff as I was younger, but when I moved to Fallowfield, that's when I've been through a little bit, and I started chilling with. You could call it the wrong or the right crowd, because I call it the wrong or the right crowd because even though the influence was negative, it still paved the way for who I am today.
Right.
And without them experiences and them people in my life, I wouldn't be the man that I am here today.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're not glamorising crime by any stretch of the imagination, but at the end of the day, a lot of these people have had a really hard life too.
100%.
And it's been their only means to survival, and it's what they've known, and it's their only way to make something meaningful, for themselves. It's easy to judge, isn't it?
Of course it is.
But obviously you got into some pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah, later on down the line.
You did later on down the line, and you got, convicted of firearms offences. We don't need to go into it too much, but it's a pretty heavy position to be in as a 22-year-old.
Yep.
You're looking at a 10-year stretch in jail.
Yep.
Really, you're just a kid.
Yep.
So how do you mentally process something like that?
For me, at that time, it was kind of, I've always kind of looked for the good in any negative situation. And that was one situation that I struggled to find the good at the time. When I originally got arrested, I didn't think I was actually going to get found guilty, you see. We ran trial on the case, and I ended up being found guilty. And it was at that point when the reality hit me that I was actually about to do this sentence, because I've always believed, I'm set for great things. I'm going to be that guy. That's that's the thought process I've carried since I was young. I was going to be somebody who was going to be a somebody.
Yeah.
So then when I actually got a guilty and the reality hit me and I went back to that prison cell and I had to sit in the prison cell with my co-defendant, and we had to look at each other and say, we ain't going home from this. Wow. Do you know what I mean? You're actually doing this, because I thought I was going to get away with it. It was 3 days after my my second pro fight, after I got back from Vegas for the Ultimate Fighter, because I was actually in Vegas with the UFC.
That's right.
For the Ultimate Fighter, which is obviously went on to be one of the biggest TV programs.
Huge.
And that had major implications. If they said to me, if I would have gone on another year, well, not another year, they wanted me to go and get some more pro fights up when I got there, because my record weren't that good. Well, it wasn't that it was good. I just didn't have any professional fights at the time. I only had one. And they were like, look, we love your personality, we love your character, we love your charisma. I went in and did a rap when I was there. I rapped in front of all the production team for the UFC. I kind of blew them away. And I believed that I was going to get in at that time. And then when they told me we're not going to have you.
Just let's backtrack, because this is really important.
Yeah, of course.
So you're this kid from... Russia or Levenstein
Rush home to Fallowfield.
Fallowfield
at
right?
this point.
And you're doing all this stuff.
Yep.
And you've always probably been you probably can handle yourself, being a bit of a fighter. How did you get into MMA? Like, how did you get into doing that? And how did you tell me a bit about the journey about becoming professional?
Yeah, so the journey was more down to the fact that my uncle was a fifth dan in karate. And I used to always watch my uncle. We had a picture of him on the fireplace, and I used to always look at him, and it was a picture of him doing his side kick, and he was side kicking a big name fighter called Phil Nurse. And I was kind of like, I always used to say to him, I want to be like my Uncle Anthony, even though I didn't have. He would come round from time to time, and he'd come round. Every time he'd come round, me and him would be fighting. Yeah. He was like my inspiration because my father's never been there. I've never had a dad. My dad's never been there for me. My dad left when I was young and has never been in my life. So he was my closest male role model, and I always aspired to be like him. So then, as time went on, and I ended up moving to Fallowfield, getting involved in the gangs and all the crazy stuff. I seen my friend actually called Ashley Smith. Yeah. And he was a fighter, and I seen a video of him fighting, and I seen it on the phone. I said, I want to do that. So I went to my uncle and said, listen, I want to start getting on some fighting. And then he started taking me on the pads, teaching me a technique. And then I went to another gym called Mossai Ground and Pound, where there was a load of white guys, crazy white guys who would do a lot of grappling and
wrestling stuff.
Yeah, wrestling stuff. They had black eyes, bald heads, and you go in there and just get your ass handed to you, you get punched up. But, that made me become even tougher than what I already was at that point. So then what I did was I then started to go back to the streets because I was heavy in the streets at these times. And after times of training, I started to feel the respect that I would get from my peers.
On the street?
On the street, because they seeing me dedicating myself to being a fighter, which is obviously at that age, is heavily respected regardless of what, because amongst your peers, it's not about who's good with guns and who's good with knives, because you would never usually bring them to your friends. If you have arguments with your friends, you might have a fist fight. Yeah. So me elevating myself in the sense of becoming stronger and building myself physically, I felt the respect when I was going back to my peers, and that filled me with motivation to go harder because I was always the youngest one out of my group. Really? So yeah, I was me and my boy Ramon Razor. We were always the youngest. So everybody else was like 4 years older than us. Yeah. And at the age of like 15, 16, it's a big age gap from 16 to 20 or 19, 18. So our friends were always older. That's why I've kind of always had an older head on me, because I've always been around. When I was younger, I was always around my close-knit group. I was around them forever, and they were the people that I was looking up to. Yeah. So I started training a lot, and then after a bit I started to get really good, and everyone in the gym started to boost me up and say, look, you can really be a top fighter. Yeah. So my uncle continued to train me. I'd do one-to-ones with my Uncle Anthony, but then I'd also go to Mossai Ground and Pound and do my grappling and my sparring. And then I got offered a fight, and I'd only been training for I think it was about 6 months at this point, and I was like, yeah, I'll take it, I'll fight anyone. Really? Yeah, I'll fight anyone. Come, I was telling all my boys, they had boys from all over different parts of Manchester, and I'm on the phone to them, because I've always been somebody who kind of networked out of my area as well. I kind of had friends in Salford, in Millerton, in North Manchester, all around different areas. So I'm on the phone to everyone like, yo, listen, come down to this fight, and I got everybody, all my boys.
Where was it?
It was in Stoke.
Wow.
So I got all my boys. These are grafters. These are kids that were making dough. These are big kids. I got everyone down to Stoke. And I pulled up. I've got out. Yeah, come man, I'm going to do this, kid, and whatever. I got in there and got beat.
Really?
Yeah, I got beat.
In what round?
I just got for the whole round. He took me down every round and just held me down on the floor. Couldn't get up.
That must have been humbling for you.
It was humbling, but the funny thing is when I sit back and I look at me as a person, even though it hit me and it hurt me, it didn't affect me. I was just like, right, it's happened, straight back on the horse. And that's something that I can identify now in my character from young, that has always been a trait that I've always had. Yeah.
Where do you think you get the mental toughness from?
I think, if I'm being brutally honest, I think from my mum. I think the beats that she used to give me, and I know it might sound, but I was a kid that deserved it, but I'm telling you, I'd be bad. I would be bad, and my mum would come and kick my ass. I mean, she beat me around the bedroom because she was a single parent trying to raise me and my little sister.
But also, in that day and age, it was
the norm anyway. It was normal. Yeah. It was normal. And I was a young boy, and I thought I was tough, and my mum was letting me know that if you want to go on like that, well, this is the consequence to it. And don't get me wrong, I did so much stuff, and I don't realise and understand why I kept doing it, because the beatings that I used to get every time I'd do something stupid was intense.
Yeah.
So what that left me with was the ability to endure physical pain.
Wow.
Do you understand?
Yeah, yeah.
So then when I'm fighting now and people are hitting me at that age and sparring in the
Do you
gym,
zone out a little bit?
I enjoy it.
Do
As I
you?
get old, as I started to develop, I enjoy people hitting me and trying to hurt me, because then it's like I feed off it and I can
Fuels
push.
you,
It fuels
yeah.
me to go. So, you know, that was one of the traits that I had as a fighter.
But you can't be scared, can you? That's the thing.
No,
Because
no.
that I think it's a mental thing too. It's not just
100%.
about who's physically stronger. It's about who has the mental edge.
100%, and the mental game, like I say, for MMA is so vital, so important,
Yeah.
and this is why, you know, I try and preach to all the younger fighters now who are in the gym, is kind of like, work on your mental as well. Believe in yourself.
Yeah, it's all
Self-belief is
mental.
so important.
I think it's, you know, we talk about how you get a healthy body is 80% food, 20% gym.
100%.
How you achieve anything in life is 80% mental and 20% what your actions
physical,
are.
exactly.
100%. But I don't think we give that enough importance. But so you lost your first MMA fight, and then you got your second one.
And then I changed gym.
Right.
And I went to train in Wolfslayer, where Michael Bisping was. He was the only UK MMA fighter that was actually in the UFC. They had a sick gym, Mascal's firm, in Widnes.
Right.
And I went there and trained with them guys, and the training up there was just a totally different ball game to anything that I've been doing.
Really leveled up.
It was a level up. It was full professional structure to every class. It was repetitive drills. It was working around some highly athletes and coaches.
Yeah.
And my game just went through the roof at this point.
Yeah.
So then I actually was there for about 6 months. 6 months to
How old
8
are you
months.
now?
I'm probably about 18 now.
Yeah.
18 at this point, and then they put me in for my first pro fight. So I jumped the rank. I only had one amateur.
Wow.
And went straight to pro. Like this day and age in MMA, kids will have 10 amateurs and then they'll turn pro.
Yeah.
Where back in the day, it weren't that. You were just having one fight, right, sweet, you're pro now. Getting elbows, knees, the full lot, the full shebang.
Wow.
So I kind of, I went straight into a pro fight, and I fought a guy called Farid Mohammed, who was from Birmingham. And once again, I got all my people down, and he was a prospect from Birmingham.
Right.
And he had a big following, and he'd been beating a lot of people. But they put me in against him, and the promotion kind of wanted him to win.
Right.
Yeah, because he was their guy who was selling loads of tickets. He had a big Asian following coming down from Birmingham, so he had a big following. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He was the boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he came down with all his team, his people. I came down with all my people. But obviously from down here, I was really the only one at that time who was really doing the fighting thing. So I had a lot of people come up.
Yeah.
And I beat him.
Did you?
Yeah, I beat him bad. I blacked his whole face up. We had a war. Don't get me wrong. It was toe to toe from the bell. Come out. We were just slinging hands at each other from the bell. He was big. He was big. Anyone who's watching this, go and watch Kane Mousah versus Farid Mohammed, so you can.
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube, so you can go and watch it. And me and him were going toe to toe, and he was grabbing my gloves. He was being dirty. I was telling the referee, look, he's grabbing my gloves. He need me whilst I was speaking to the referee. I've hopped up, but don't forget, at these times now, I'm raw street, like active.
Yeah.
So he's need me in my face. I'm like, yo, referee. The referee's like, stop, I hopped up. I said, right, what? Mama thinks I'm a muppet. Come on then. And I started gassing all my fans up. Everyone's like, yeah, I'm saying, what? Come on. And then we just had it. But I beat him. And after I beat him, that demonstrated to everybody, because obviously with gyms and fighters, what your coaches are looking for, regardless of what, ability can always be taught, but heart and the will and desire to win is something that the majority of people possess naturally. Yes. Some people can be inspired to have that, but some people have it from birth, and it's just who they are, and it's installed in them. And I feel like
that's you.
I feel like that was me, and I feel like.
But it is you, isn't it? Because that's what you talk about. You talk about heart and having a lot of heart in everything that you do.
And I feel like, if I'm honest, Hannah, I feel like even now thinking about it, I feel like the fact that my dad wasn't in my life, I feel like I've always wanted to prove something. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I've always wanted to prove that I'm worthy, that I'm good enough. Do you get what I'm saying to you? And I feel like always since I've been little, I've always wanted to prove to him that I've got it. Do you get what I'm saying? It's a deep one, man.
It's a deep
one, and
Listen,
I don't mind being deep and opening up because that's just where the realism is. And this is,
important.
for me, this is a good conversation to let people understand that, you know, sometimes you do need a motivation and a motive. And even me, subconsciously, I've probably not even realised that was the reason. But talking to you now,
yeah,
I understand because I'm grown now. I can see it, and I understand that it was to prove that you missed out on something. Do you get what I'm saying to you? So that's why every time someone's trying to knock me down or trying to break me or trying to stop me, I refuse to lose. Do you get what I'm saying? And I feel like I carried that into the cage. So then once I've had that fight now, my gym, all the coaches, everyone just got behind me like, this guy's got what it takes.
Yeah.
So we then had the UFC come down to the gym because we had Michael Bisping and they come down. They've been filming The Ultimate Fighter in London.
Yeah.
No, they were doing the auditions where people have to go.
That's right. I watched that. It was amazing.
Right.
There was a big TV show they did, didn't they? With all these amazing fighters fighting each other. Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, they actually went to London to film The Ultimate Fighter. But because I was at the Wolves Lair with Michael Bisping, we kind of jumped the queue and they come round to film, to watch us train.
Right.
So obviously the gym have phoned me and said, right, we've got UFC down, make sure you're in with sparring so they can see what you're about. So I was like, right, I've gone there on smoke. I was ready to kill everybody in there. And I sparred my mate at the time called Leroy Barnes, and I knew me and Leroy used to always have tear-ups. So I was like, okay, I said, Leroy, come on, me and you. And I could see the woman sat above watching me.
Yeah.
And me and Leroy going at it, and I've hit him with a left hook, boom, and he's gone down on the floor. And I'm like, yeah, what? But messing about, but like, what?
Yeah.
But I knew what they were looking for at the same time.
They want entertainment as well,
They want entertainment.
Yeah.
So I knew that my character needed to shine above everybody else's within there because at the end of the day, even though we're all a team, they're only coming to select one or two people. So I'm making sure that they're coming for me. So once again, I did that, and then after the training session, they've come and they've gone, Kane would like to invite you to Vegas for the Ultimate Fighter. But at that point, I was on tag. So I couldn't leave the country. Couldn't leave the country because I was on tag. So what happened was I had to go...
So was this while the firearms thing was going on? Were you on bail?
No, this was before the firearm situation.
Yeah.
And what happened was I was on tag.
Yeah.
And basically, they said to me, you're going to have to go to your probation officer and speak to them and see if you can get past away to travel.
Right.
So I went to my probation and told him, and they said, look, because you're going for such a big opportunity that could change your life, we're going to grant you to go.
That is unbelievable, Kane.
I know.
That just doesn't happen.
I know. And you know what? It kind of gets me as well because I feel like...
That was God giving you an opportunity.
He's given me so many. Do you get me?
Yeah.
And that's why I've always been grateful. And sometimes you struggle to kind of get over your past because you kind of wonder what would have happened. But I understand that everything happens for a reason. The reason I'm here now is because of what we're doing. We're doing great things.
Yeah.
So, they said to me, you can go. So I'm like, sweet. I'm like, boom, flew, got to Vegas. Got all the way to Vegas now, and once again, I'm on the bus in Vegas with guys that I've been because don't forget, I'm only 1-0, and I'm there with Andre Winner. He's like 14-0. Yeah. I'm there with Ross Pearson. He's like 12-2. I've only had one pro fighter this time, so I'm lucky. I'm on the bus thinking, okay, now I'm with the big dogs, but I'm ready. Like, I was weighing them up thinking, boy, no one ain't taking this from me, but boy, my he's a serious guy. Do you know what I'm saying to you? But once again, Kane Mousah, man, I just end up finding myself in these mad situations that sometimes I don't even know how I got there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's once again from God, and I give thanks and say thank you for the positions that he's granted me. And I knew I had to stand out. So I'm always strategizing regardless of what, but sincerely, I knew I had to stand out. So what I did was when everyone else was, we were all doing our blood tests and our interviews and all these things, but I kept going back to my room and I thought, right, I knew we had this interview on the Thursday. We got there on the Monday. I knew we had the interview on the Thursday. So I was thinking, what am I going to be able to do?
To stand out.
To stand out. And I thought, you know what? These times I was rapping a little bit. I was an MC. So I said, you know what? I'm going to write a lyric.
That is hilarious. Go back to you, right?
So I went and sat I went and got in my hotel room and I sat there I'm writing this lyric, but it all come from the heart with me. I weren't the best spitter, but I would always spit I would spit truth and facts, yeah?
Yeah.
So I was thinking, right, okay. So then I've gone into this board meeting, yeah, and I'm telling you, there's probably about 9 people around the board table. So anyone who's been Ultimate Fighter, you'll know exactly what I'm on about.
Yeah.
There's about 9 all the producers, everyone's around the table. So like, okay, you sit right at the bottom of the table and they're all in front of you looking at you and they're like, right, okay, so why should we
pick you?
Why should we pick you?
Yeah.
And I just went, because, and I just stood up. We got the mic on.
Yeah.
I just stood up and I went, thank you all for giving me a chance to prove myself. I'm up in Vegas with the UFC and no one else. I can't believe I might be chilling up with Dana White. He's giving me the opportunity to see me fight. Fighting is the only thing I do in my life. I'm training 5 days a week and you know that's right. I want the girls, the money and the ladies too. Hey, I'm telling you straight, I ain't gonna lie to you. So just give me a chance and I will show you why. Kane Mousah is that name that is ready to fly. I want to make my mama proud for giving me life so maybe she can come to Vegas and see me fight. And everyone went, ah!
They must have gone mad.
They went mad. Everyone's gone mad in the boardroom.
I can't believe you still remember it.
Yeah, because it was...
Word for word.
Because I'd sat with it methodically and writ it correctly and wanted them to feel every single lyric and I meant everything that I was saying. So then I've come out of there like, yo, charged.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, yo, I heard you rap. Was you rapping in there? All the other guys, they're sat waiting for their interviews
shit, what am I gonna do?
Stiff now, like, ras. You get me? These guys are not from the same type of background where we're from. Do you get me? And that's why I love my background and where I'm from is because it's made me so diverse. I can adapt to all different situations and scenarios and overcome. Do you know what I mean? And
you know what? You're not intimidated by people.
I'm not intimidated by anybody.
And that is an incredible thing because that is one of the biggest setbacks for people.
100%.
Why they can't perform in a certain situation or why they can't get to, because they're so intimidated by looking at somebody in front of them who they think is either going to make a decision about their life or has done better than them.
Yes.
And I think what's amazing about what you're saying is you've just never been intimidated by anybody.
I feel like this is why I always try and tell people to kind of like search for self-belief.
Yeah.
Like, search for who you are.
Yeah.
Because I'm not, I've been blessed and I'm grateful to always know that inside myself, I've always knew something. I've always knew it. Yeah, I've had this thing. But sometimes even I kind of like have to go, right, come on, Kane, get your head back together with stuff. And I understand. So I understand sometimes people might be a lot further in that type of thought process than what I've been. And I just feel like once we accept who we are.
I think it's about acceptance, isn't it?
Of course, accepting who we are. Set yourself some goals and believe it truly, then it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing around you.
Yeah.
Because you're focused on what you need to do for you.
Do you ever compare yourself to other people?
I do comparisons in the respect of when you step into certain avenues, into certain specifics. So I don't compare me as a person to anybody else.
Yeah.
Kane Mousah is Kane Mousah, and that's me. I'm happy with me.
Yeah.
The achievement of my brand is what is in comparison, because I'm comparing, I'm looking at other guys who are further down the line or doing things that and then I compare, okay, where I'm very competitive, so I'll put us against it in ways and I'll see areas of weakness within our game or where we need to step it up, and same way I do with fighting.
That's a positive thing though, isn't it?
Of course.
Because it's not a jealousy thing, it's a how can I level up thing.
It's not, this jealousy thing for me is kind of, I struggle with it because I've never been jealous.
Yeah.
So I don't understand this. I don't know if it's a lack of self-belief. I don't know if it's because of hatred. I don't know if it's because of trauma that people have experienced whilst they're younger, why they carry this trait of jealousy, because I've never understood it, because I've never been jealous of anybody. I've admired people, and I've looked at people and thought, wow, he's smashing it, like, yeah, I want to be on what he's on. I've done that when I was younger. I've done it. You could see footballers. I used to walk around Man City's ground and see all the footballers pulling up in big cars and think, I want to be a footballer one day. Do you know what I'm saying to you? So it's kind of like, I just don't think you've got a victim mentality, and I'll explain what that means for me. Yeah.
It means that I think that's where, sometimes jealousy and all these things, everyone's insecure. We've all got our insecurities, nothing to do with that. But I think when you've got a victim mentality, which is when you blame situations or circumstances or people or things for where you are in your life, that's when comparison's a very unhealthy thing. And that's where jealousy comes from. So, but I don't see that in you. I don't see you're a victim. I think you've been through a lot of stuff in your life, right? And you've overcome those things. And what I love so much about you is the fact that, you know, people do messed up things. We all make bad choices.
Of course.
And sometimes people die by that, in the sense that it really makes them smaller as a person. They can't get over it. So, and I want to talk to you a bit more about that, because you have this amazing opportunity. You're in the, you know, you're at UFC, you're in the US. My God, you're, what, 18 years old?
Yeah.
This is your dream about to come true.
Yeah.
You're on tag, you've got out of it.
Yeah.
So what happens, tell me about 18 to you going to jail at 22. Like, what happens in those 4 years? And what I really want to talk about is your choices and your decision making, because this podcast might go out to somebody, Kane, who's in a, I don't know, who might be on the cusp of making a bad or a good choice.
Yeah.
And what I want you to be able to educate by your story is, I want you to talk about your thought processes and why you did the things that you did.
Yeah, and, you know, I believe at that time, I was caught between two
Worlds.
worlds.
Yeah.
I have the worlds of my peers and the lifestyle that I was living,
Yeah.
which was being involved in the gangs. And when it's a culture that you've been around, I've been around hearing about Gooch and Dodderton since I was, before anything, I've heard about them from 7, 8 years of age.
Right.
And then finally, as a you know, growing into a man, I'm a part of this gang culture. I'm a part of it. I'm heavily involved in it. And for me, it was kind of like, it was understanding that I wanted to chase my dreams, but I also didn't want to leave my friends.
Would you not think it's more than, like, it's a sense of family? You didn't grow up with your dad.
Didn't grow
Probably
up with my dad.
heavily, massively influential male role models.
100%.
You know, which
Heavy.
has meant something to you, right?
Yep.
When you've got a hole, really, and you've not had that, there's been an absence
100%.
of that. And then these people, good or bad, have been there for you, supported you,
100%.
loved you,
Been
like
there.
family, right?
Family.
So it's almost like, how do I make that choice? But go on, I want to
Yeah,
know.
and that's right. And it's exactly what you're saying. And, you know, they were my family.
Yeah.
You know, they had my back. They were my brothers, my cousins, my dads, my uncles. They were everything. That's what I found within our situation. And it was, I kind of at the time, you know, when my friend Marcus got shot, Marcus Fullerton, he died when I was 16.
Wow.
And he was 18.
Was that a gang one? Gang?
Yeah, well, it was an altercation, not based on actual gang issues that we had at the time, but it was an altercation, and someone ended up pulling out a gun, and he ended up getting shot. And that took the wind out of me. That kind of that knocked me. He was like my big brother. He was my number one. He was my guiding angel. He was the guy he was that type of person. I had an altercation with a guy who was beating up my cousin, and I jumped on this guy's back to stop him from beating my cousin. And the guy turned around, and he was a big guy, but I couldn't see him beating my female cousin. He was beating her up.
Yeah.
And I jumped on his back on Parkside Road and was hitting him, trying to fight him. And the guy turned around, and I was thinking to myself, I was only young at these times. I'm talking like 14, 15.
Right.
This guy turned around, he must have been like 22. And I'm thinking, he's going to smack me up. Next thing, I just seen a hand come from nowhere, bam! And it was Marcus, knocked the guy clean out. And the guy, tooth flew out of his mouth. I'll never forget it. And I looked, and he was like, no one touches little Kane. And from that day, I was like, this is my guy.
Yeah.
And then when he died, it shook our whole infrastructure, our team. He was a leader.
Really?
Yeah, we lost a leader. And when
That's sad, isn't it?
It was very sad.
So sad.
It was very sad. It cut me deep. And I feel like I mask a lot of my trauma well.
Yeah.
Because I haven't, you know, I'm not perfect. Listen, I'm far from perfect. I know I've got my own issues that I deal with from time to time, but I feel one thing with me, I don't know where it's from, but I feel like I mask my trauma really well. And that situation with Marcus, it affected me in the way where I actually stepped up and I became him. I became the person that I knew he would have wanted me to be. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I started to use his leadership skills and his ability to be liked by people was something that I always recognized, because there were so many different people in the gang. There were so many different characters. These guys are like characters out of movies that I was looking up to. You had, I'm not saying no names, but you had certain men that were so different, but so on the same level of intensity, same level of gangster, real killers. Like, I seen robbers, killers, drug dealers, I seen everything. And I was close with these people, and these were my peers, and they were all different in all their own ways. And I used to always watch how certain people were accepted, or were other people were around them, and how other people used to speak about them. And I always used to, I had like 4, and every time people would speak about them, say, oh, he's great. Oh, Kane, can you chat to him? I know he'll be all right. And then there'd be somewhere people go, oh, I don't like him, and oh, I don't want him around. And that energy of the fear, I never wanted people to fear me.
Right. You want them to respect you and like
I wanted
you.
people to respect me and love me.
Yeah.
Because I understood that with love and respect comes safety as well.
Yes.
It's real safety. It's not like when people fear you, they're always looking for a way, or if something, opportunity comes to get you out, they'll get you out.
Yeah.
So I understood that Marcus had that type of impact, and I knew that that was the impact that I wanted to have.
Yeah.
So what I then ended up doing was taking the leadership role, because a lot of my elders then got put in prison. My friends, my older peers, they ended up going in jail.
Yeah.
And I just stepped into the role and just became the guy who was trying to, well, not just me, there was me and a few others, but I was from my area, Fallowfield. I stepped up and I was kind of like, right, this is where we're going.
Yeah.
I'm going to lead the team. And it wasn't never to be, I was always kind of like a defender. I didn't like being on the attack. I always liked defending in case, because, you know, people come, you bring it to us and we'll defend ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's just how I am in life now.
Yeah.
Anywhere, whether it's fighting, business, whatever it is, if someone comes for me, then I'm going to defend myself. But I'm not the one to just go and attack, because I don't like bullies. I don't like bullying. And I feel like when you attack people that are not ready or don't want it, and you're attacking, it's bullying. And I've never been a bully. And that trait in my personality, as I became the person that I was becoming, allowed people from out of the area to always reach out to me if issues were going on within the gang, or issues were going on within the situation.
You're quite a diplomat, aren't you?
I'm a very diplomat.
You're a peacemaker, actually.
Yeah, peacemaker, yeah. I'm a diplomat, yeah. And that was a kind of a trait that kind of allowed me to elevate myself. And because I was doing the fighting as well, what happened was people started to respect it. But don't get me wrong, I was busy on the road at certain times. I actually did bits of dirt at the time. In my head, I was defending. I always looked at gang culture as the government is a gang. Every government's a gang, you know. You've got.
Do you look at it differently now, do you think?
Yeah, of course. What I always believe in is that men, in our nature, is to come together in a team or a crowd for protection.
Yeah.
That's what happens in nature. That's what the world's doing now.
Yeah.
You know, America wants to be the strongest. Britain wants to be the strong. Everyone wants to be the strongest for their team, yeah? So I always believe that we're a team, and we will defend ourselves because we are a team. And that's how it kind of was for me. So then what happened was, when I started to excel in the fighting, and the opportunity for Vegas came, and then I won that. I then come back from Vegas, and they were like, right, you haven't got a good enough record.
Right.
No, you haven't got good enough. You haven't got a big enough.
So
You want to know.
We
need 3 minimum, and we're gonna get you back in on the next show.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna get you in. If it's not the next one, we'll definitely have you in. But we can't pass you.
Yeah. As a professional with only one fight. Yeah.
We can't pass you on the show because the criteria is free.
Yeah. Okay.
So I had to go and have a fight, and at this point, I went and had a fight, and I won. I fought a Scouts guy called Andy McGurgan, who was very tough.
Yeah.
Tough guy, prospect from Next Generation, I think he was.
Yeah.
And then anyway, I had a tough fight. He got me in the first round, elbowed me in my nose, and I looked up. I remember looking up, and I see my mum and everyone in the crowd.
Yeah.
Right in the top tier. And I just said to myself, there ain't no way I am losing. Once again, my mum, the feel of letting her down.
Really?
Boy, I just went, boom, kicked him, jumped up, bam, 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 went back to my corner, lost the first round. My uncle Anthony said, you've lost that round.
Yeah.
I said, all right, he slapped me in the face, boom. I was like, you're going to go out, he's gonna try and take you down again, make sure you're ready for it. I just went out, he tried to take me down, I stepped off, landed on top of him, bam, 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 bam. Set third round, come round, did the same. He finished the fight with a hematoma on his head like this, and I won the fight.
I mean, what you guys do is brutal.
Yeah.
Let's not make any, bones about it. It is brutal, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's punishing.
It's raw.
It's raw. It's
the
worse than
rawest
boxing.
form of.
It's worse than boxing.
Yeah, it's well worse.
Oh my
It's the
God.
rawest form of combat. It's the same as me coming in here now.
Yeah.
If a boxer comes in here, then he can only box.
Yeah.
If my thing is always, I'm always prepared to protect myself, my family, my friends.
Yeah.
And if I'm on road or if I'm on the street and somebody tries to challenge me or take harm, should I say, not challenge, harm me and my family, then I'm going to react in a way where I'm going to make sure that we are safe to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to be tough, strong and fit, regardless of fighting and competing. So with me, MMA is the rawest form of combat because there's punch, kicks, knees, elbows, takedowns, wrestling, slams, everything, the full shebang.
Yeah.
And this guy I beat was a big prospect.
Yeah.
So after it, I was like, boom, I'm winning.
Yes.
I've won. All my friends were there. There's like 200 people came up to Liverpool. I was buzzing. Next thing,
That's your second
3
fight.
days later,
Yeah.
second fight. So I only need one more now. Yeah. 3 days later, I got arrested.
Oh my God, that was amazing, guys. I'm so excited to share with you part 2 of this incredible conversation. We talk about how he navigated his way through jail, how he came out and how he completely turned his life around. It is such a powerful and inspiring story, and I can't wait to share it with you. Hi guys, thank you so much for being on the Rise journey with me, Henna Riaz. This podcast has been brought to you by Marylebone Publishing. Please don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Rise with Henna.